start at like 19?
Guys,
Nathan, what are you talking about?
we are recording.
We start.
This is another
Why don't you ever
episode
say
He just
of the Greater
right in the
Meaning.
middle. All right. Welcome to another episode of the Greater Meaning Podcast. As always,
Welcome.
I'm your host, Andrew, alongside my two co-hosts, Nathan
I promise you, we're not doing this on purpose with the
and
intros.
Joshua.
Hello. We're all souped up on energy drinks, and we are ready to go, ready to deliver you this
Calamitous
It's
story.
energetic.
Is that a good word?
I was gonna say cocaine filled, but my bad.
No, not at all. Bad Josh.
Maybe I'll cut that word out. But
In this episode, we will cover the extraordinary ways God will actually shake the very nation of Egypt to get them to release the Israelites whom they have held in captive for 400 years after finally accepting God's commission at Mount Sinai around a burning bush. Moses takes his brother Aaron, his wife, and his children and heads back to Egypt. This comes after spending 40 years in the land of Midian with Reuel, or Jethro, his father-in-law. Now, before we get into the story, we noticed that reviewing for this episode, one of the main characters of this portion of the story is going to be Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And last episode, we spoke a little bit about the history and what could possibly be around the timeline of the setting of the book of Exodus. But being that the character of Pharaoh is such an important figure as pretty much the main antagonist personified against the children of Israel, we talked a little bit about and we did a little bit of research. And actually, Josh did some fantastic research and got with me and showed me kind of some very compelling evidences to kind of give some actual real world historical evidence of the events of the Exodus taking place and possibly taking some, assumptions and some, historical archaeology.
You remember like
just a bunch of things to kind of establish who could possibly have been the Pharaoh, the historically accurate Pharaoh during the time of the Exodus.
And don't forget the context of the whole slavery topic, because in my mind, it wasn't making sense. Something wasn't adding up and didn't add up to the fact of all of a sudden these people are living in Egypt, everything's going great, and now things just turn like upside down, and now they're slaves, and it's no longer the fairy tale story that we hear as children, where they're slaves in Egypt for 400 years, treated terribly. Now, after doing some extensive research, but like especially Andrew's going to go into it a little bit, we see that it's not exactly how the whole kids' Bible type of story has been given to us. It's not really the Hollywood version that we see.
Yeah, if you're gonna use the Prince of Egypt movie by DreamWorks to like give you the accurate history of the way it was, obviously Hollywood went off of like the Ramsey type of Pharaoh timeline, assuming that's very famously a lot of people assume that it was Ramses the second was the Pharaoh during the Exodus and the fight with Moses. But if you're a fan of the podcast and you've listened to us up to this point, I'm sure you know that Josh very adamantly has some issues with believing that the Israelites were in slavery and in bondage and in
for
need
400
of the quote-unquote
years.
Exodus. Well, yeah, they were there for a good period. I mean, the Bible tells us 400 years or 430 years, but to give us a little bit of background so that we don't waste too much time, I don't want to spend too much time getting into the thick of the extensive Egyptian history. And I mean, there's people that devote their entire lives to Egyptology and like the study of ancient Egypt and archaeology. And so we're very much so ill-equipped to give you the exacts. But if we're going to try to stay accurate to what the Bible tells us and connect that with what we know from history, I think that we can make a pretty compelling case to figuring out which exact Pharaoh could have been the Pharaoh from the Exodus. Now,
you know what? I think we should get into the thick of Egyptian history there.
Hey, Nathan. Just realized the first time you've spoken.
Yeah, because both of you haven't given me any room to say anything.
I'm sorry, we were just both so excited about this because this really helped Josh understand a good timeline as to and a reason why it would have been such a bondage and such a slavery, other than just, a new Pharaoh came up and was just like, I don't like you.
Yeah.
Chain him up. It's a little bit.
It kind of happened that way, but we're missing some key details on how it happened to make it
in
make
this
sense.
episode, we're going to cover the 10 plagues of Egypt, which it's famous beyond just the Bible. I mean, it's one of the craziest things to happen. God specifically goes out of his way to make miraculous wonders and to press upon Egypt. And it tells us in the Bible that so that their sons and their sons' sons will remember how God saved them and they can remember how God worked for his people. But if we're going to try to date, and this is one of the ways that we can figure out the time and who the Pharaoh possibly could have been, using the Bible, starting with 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 1, it famously gives us a little bit of a timestamp, which would have been, it says that Solomon begins his temple construction roughly 480 years after the Exodus. Why it gives us that timestamp, it's very interesting, but it's pretty much well established that Solomon and his reign kind of took place around 1000 BC, or this construction of the temple would have taken place between 967 BC and a couple years before then. So if we go off of that timestamp and then rewind 480 years, it puts us to kind of around the time of 446 BC. And if we look at Egyptian history around that time, we know this from different historians, mainly an early historian, Mantheo, and then also the Josephus, which was a famous Jewish historian, which goes off of Mantheo's kind of writings and his understanding. Mantheo is an Egyptian historian under Pharaoh Ptolemy II in Philadelphus between around 300 and 200 BC. And his accounts of the Hyksos specifically, preserved through the writings of Flavius Josephus from the 1st century, paint a hostile and anti-Hyksos picture. Now, I bring up this word Hyksos because it helps us kind of bring in this idea of remembering where Jacob and Joseph left off in the land of Gershom. So we have this, Genesis ends with Joseph and his father and his brothers and everybody in good terms and a good land, and they're given responsibility and they're given prosperity and they're given the choice land. And then all of a sudden we pick up in Exodus and everybody's in slavery and a new Pharaoh has risen up. And we touched a little bit on it last episode, how a new Pharaoh would have meant more of not just a guy that took over after the person before him, but it would have established kind of a new dynasty. And very famously in his story, this is getting deep.
Hey, all right. Hey, guys, we need to stop.
Okay. Real quick.
Andrew, you have talked for the last
it's been 8 minutes.
8 minutes straight. Like not giving him or me any break or any way to enter into anything.
I'm just trying to rush through it, man.
Why?
Because I think it's really
he's trying to rush through it. He's trying to get through the because
the thick of it.
I agree with what he's
It's
doing.
a lot. It's a lot. And I want to get to the cool parts of the story, but I do want to establish this. Okay, long story short, Amenhotep II was probably the Pharaoh of the Exodus. Let's just jump right
say
ahead.
that from the beginning.
Well, the reason I say is because
Nathan, there's so much to it because during the whole like Exodus
Hyksos
1 to
era,
Exodus 2 and Exodus 3, we have
there's like multiple
different. It's like almost 5 different pharaohs that we have in that little time area. So it gets kind of crazy to kind of see it and imagine it.
Listen,
because all we
now some deep.
All we see when you're
but
reading, all you see is Pharaoh. So you're thinking it's just one guy, but now as we did this research, it's not just one guy, and that's why we see different personalities through each one. Because it wouldn't make sense that, okay, now the Hebrews are living in Egypt and Pharaoh just all of a sudden is like, I don't trust these people. Let's chain them up. Then they chain them up and then they adopt a Hebrew. So now why in the world is a Hebrew hating Pharaoh adopting a Hebrew as a son? It doesn't make sense. So now we're, as Andrew's about, exactly, it's a woman Pharaoh, but Andrew is is breaking it down for us. Andrew, I need you to also kind of break down who the Hyksos are as well.
So there, in the extensive history of Egypt, there, and again, I'm not an expert, so don't take me to the bank. I did research.
No, but our research was of experts, people who did the research.
In the history, this is actually well known that there was an Upper Egypt and a Lower Egypt before there was one unified Egypt. And Upper Egypt had its own king and pharaoh, and they were known as kind of the Hyksos people. And there was a good relationship between Lower Egypt, which would have been a more authentic native Egyptian people, because where they were placed was very lush land. As we know from Egyptian history, the river would flood and it would recede, and that topsoil that it would leave very luscious land and soil for growing crops and whatnot. And there was also a connection with the other countries to be able to trade. So when Joseph and his fathers were there in the land of Goshen, it was kind of towards the Upper Egypt, where the land of the Hyksos Egyptians would have been. In the time of Moses, around 1557 to 1532 BC, he famously unites and destroys the Hyksos people and unites Pharaoh or Egypt under one totalitarian nation, and kind of and becomes like the official one pharaoh connecting Upper and Lower
North
Egypt.
Korea, South Korea. Think North Vietnam and South Vietnam.
So there's this idea.
This is what's going on.
So there's this idea. I wouldn't say that, but yeah, there's this idea that the Israelites being part of the Upper Egypt and then being conquered by this new pharaoh who did not know Joseph and took care of, and obviously if the Israelites were there with the Hyksos, had a good relationship, and there was this ensuing struggle, I don't think they would have stayed idly by. So there was a potential that they maybe were with the Hyksos people in fighting against them. But again, this is all conjecture and assumption. But just assume this. They were conquered. This new pharaoh doesn't know who the Israelites are. They probably fought against them. They were taken into captivity. And that's how they entered into that period of slavery, and they were given taskmasters. That's also why we see that the pharaoh, when he says, oh, these people are numerous, we should deal shrewdly with them, because they can either rise up against us, like the Hyksos did, or ally themselves with our enemy and fight against us. It's a very specific worry, and it had date and some very realistic like events that would have transpired. So if we go based off that dating and we go forward from Moses, then you have Amenhotep II, who was famous for killing, children, being very mean to children in history, and slave children. This is around the time that Moses would have been born. I'm not going to get so crazy into it. Let's just say this.
Thutmoses and Thutmoses II.
Yeah, so Thutmoses. Hatshepsut. The reason we bring in Hatshepsut is probably one of the most famous, not only female figures in Egypt history, but in all of history. She was a ruler that she was a queen regent, essentially. During this time of 1485 to 1466, she was in control because Thutmoses II, who would have been the pharaoh of the oppression, he dies pretty quickly, but he was married to his stepsister, because back then, keeping the bloodlines secure and pure, as we know through other royal families, it would have been very popular to kind of intermarry and keep it within the line. But he has a son, Thutmoses III, but by the time that Thutmoses II dies, he's very young, and then Hatshepsut, she actually ruled as a queen regent up until Thutmoses III can grow up and actually be old enough to rule.
And to kind of put this into a little bit of the timeline, Thutmoses II and even Thutmoses I, they were really known for like being baby killers. That's
what I was saying. That was
baby killers of slaves. So this whole period that we see all the male the male babies of the Hebrews being killed, these are the pharaohs that are basically decreeing these orders.
Yeah, so we have Hatshepsut, who would have been the reason they assume that if we're going based off this timeline of 1446 to 1500 BC, she would have been the only person around that would have not only been in charge, would have also been named as a daughter of Pharaoh. There was nobody else around during this time that could have been given that title. And in the Bible, it says that the daughter of Pharaoh came down to the river to bathe and then found this baby. There's also some
1500 to 1446.
Yeah. Around this time period, there was also story between Hatshepsut. She was famously never able to have a son. She had a daughter she bore, but she would have gone down and prayed to the river god Hapi at the Nile River and asked him for a son. And then it was supposed that she was given a son from a foreign people that, I mean, if this sounds familiar, that was given to her, and she named him, I mean, Moses, kind of like that name coming from the water. Like this, it's not confirmed. There's nothing to prove this, but there is that connection, if you want to put those connections based on this story, this chronology, and based on this time period. It's interesting to assume that Hatshepsut, this very famous queen regent in Egyptian's history, who also in like completely made Egypt like rich. She was very wise with the way she ruled, but she would have had this adopted son, and that could have been Moses. And now we go on to Tutmosis III. Tutmosis III is famous because he would have been one of the most famous pharaohs, if not, some people debate the greatest pharaoh in Egyptian history. If he wasn't the greatest, then he was absolutely the greatest in terms of conquering. He conquered and enlarged the territory of Egypt more than any other Egyptian pharaoh. He was also famous for wanting to enact a lot of monument constructions. He was big on making...
One of his nicknames is basically scholars call him the Egyptian Napoleon. Because
he's literally like
conquered so much.
Exactly. He conquered so much, and he was very famous. His strategies are actually still studied to this day.
Tutmosis III?
Tutmosis III, absolutely. Yeah. Now, he hated Hatshepsut for some reason. There was a huge animosity between them, to where he actually, when he came to power, there's so little known about like her artifacts and her histories, because he literally had it ordered to like carve it out and wipe it from history. A lot of her images are like crossed over and literally scratched over on her artifacts. It's pretty insane. So a lot of this history is, obviously erased. And then
the 18th year is exactly 480 years before Solomon built his temple.
Exactly. So now this also would have been an alignment with Moses, because there had to have been a pharaoh that was around long enough. And now this guy, imagine, he hates Hatshepsut. So her stepson kills a random Egyptian. He's immediately like, okay, kill this guy. So he runs off to the wilderness, and he had to have been there for 40 years. Famously, there was no other pharaoh that had reigned as long as Tutmosis III. He reigned for about 56 years. No other pharaoh comes even close. And we had to have had a pharaoh that would have reigned for at least 40 years and have died within that period for Moses to have had, where God says the pharaoh and all those that seek to take your life are dead. So that is really, really another indicator, kind of giving credence to this idea and this chronology. Some artifacts that were discovered in the land of Gershom by archaeologists that kind of give credence to this Hyksos and the Israelites theory is that there was kind of like a seal found that had the engravings that would have translated from that early Egypt to Jacob, the words that literally spell out the name Jacob and a sign for authority. Now, Jacob was given control over the flocks and the livestock of Pharaoh, which would have been a very high and prestigious position. It wasn't just made of, a shepherd. It would have been over Pharaoh's sheep. So he would have had like influence, and he would have had some type of importance. So he's finding those type of artifacts that date back to around this time period, as well as giving us some type of archaeological evidence for this theory. But after Tutmosis II, then we have Amenhotep II, which was named after often obvious Amenhotep I. His father was Tutmosis III. And that is why we assume that after Tutmosis III died, Moses would have been making his way back to Egypt, and Amenhotep II would have been the pharaoh of Egypt, ruling between 1431 and 1406 BC. Okay, what time are we at? That's it. I hope people are still with us. So that is why. Now it goes way more. There's a lot more evidence. There's a lot more ideas. There's a lot more that goes into it.
It's great that it was broken down, because a lot of people don't know this, and a lot of people don't even. Honestly, a lot of people wouldn't care to really read it and go extensively into who is the actual pharaoh, because if you think about it, if you don't even know about the question even existing, you're never even going to look into it. So now that you have kind of an understanding of who Pharaoh most likely was, and even the fact that the Pharaoh that adopted Moses was a female, explains so much on that whole concept in itself. Like last episode we were talking, why in the world would Pharaoh allow a Hebrew to be a Hebrew? That's awesome.
A Hebrew.
Yo, Hebrew. Either way, why in the world would a Pharaoh that hated Hebrews allow a Hebrew to be adopted into the royal family. But now that we know that the female, which I don't know, I don't remember if you really touched on it, but she had a daughter. She always wanted a son, and she always wanted a son also so that because she poured so much into Egypt and did so much for that nation, she wanted something and someone to give it to. And she didn't really want Tutmosis III to have it, even though he technically was supposed to take it. And maybe he hated her because she might have been making some type of coup with this new adopted son to take over the nation. And then after she dies, we see that this guy just disappears. He's no longer in the records. He's just gone. And same thing with Tutmosis III. There's just a bunch of there's a bunch of half-made artifacts of him, or was it Amenhotep II? Either way, it's fascinating to see.
It's one of those pharaohs between that time. I don't know if exactly.
It's fascinating to see that there was this a female pharaoh, and then the one in charge adopts Moses. Did you touch on how she got to adopt him?
Yeah.
Okay,
so
she went
paperwork with the adoption agency.
She prayed to the god of the river. Yeah.
Yeah, she prayed to the god of the river, and Moses. It's
okay,
just
hold
it's
on.
wild
It might have been
to see how it
Moses
ties.
III. Just one of those pharaohs. Again, I don't have the exact here. There's other schools of thought. One of those pharaohs around that time period. There's good evidence by the storyline for lining up. So let us get into the actual story itself.
Last we left, Moses was heading home.
Moses was meeting up with Aaron and getting his family, and we find him in the rest of chapter 4, meeting up with his father Jethro, or his father-in-law, I should say, Jethro, wanting to get permissions because he tells him what happened and how God spoke to him. And he says, give me time and leave so that I can go and fulfill my destiny, if you will. Obviously, Jethro says, go in peace. He doesn't hold him back or give him any struggle. But there is a little bit of a hiccup that's not really brought up in any type of Hollywood movie. In The Prince of Egypt, none of it talks about this little bitty part while Moses is on his way back to Pharaoh. Something happens that's very interesting. Nathan, if you can read from verse 24 for me, please, in Exodus chapter 4. Read until 26.
And it came to pass on the way at the encampment that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at Moses' feet and said, surely you are a husband of blood to me. So he let him go. Then she said, you are a husband of blood because of the circumcision.
Very fun. So nobody really brings up this little point. Moses has this incredible, life-changing experience, meets God, receives a commission, receives instruction, receives the power to create miracles to prove that God has sent you. And he gets his family on the way, and God, instead of saying something, he seeks to kill him. And why does he seek to kill him on the road?
To be honest,
he's not circumcised.
I don't even, I can't, like, I have nothing really to say about that. It makes no actual sense on why.
Wait, God seeks to kill Moses?
Yeah.
Yes.
You just read it.
I know.
After he gives them all this instruction, he lays, maybe it could have been that now God goes back to his throne and he's just sitting there. He's like, you know what? This guy really, really just gets my goils gurning. I don't know if those are words, but either way, I really did not like how many times he questioned me, and I accepted all of, and then I gave him so many different things. I'm just gonna kill the guy. So maybe it could have been that. I don't know.
It's extremely off-putting if you're reading along the narrative.
Well, the wife circumcises their son.
She, in haste, grabs a stone that's sharp and cuts off her son's foreskin. He was kind of old.
And throws it at Moses' feet.
It's the whole Isaac situation.
Screaming about blood. Blood!
Dude, I did read and I did study this.
Surely you're a husband of blood. Like, what?
Dude, so
God's trying to kill me.
So first off, let's start here. The Lord met him and sought to kill him when he was at the encampment, or other places say it's at the inn or the place where they rested. The first time we were reading this, and I've heard this from other people, they imagined it like they're riding and all of a sudden an angel is coming from the sky with a sword and they see it from far off. And it's just like, imagine the sky opening up and you just see this big angel coming to just straight kill you and your family.
Yeah, but this is different. It doesn't say that an angel of the Lord came. It says that the Lord met him.
Says the Lord met him. Exactly. So a lot of research, and I mean a lot of people that broke this down and took the understanding from the original translation in Hebrew, take it to understand that Moses most likely was like fallen ill. The encampment would have been more of like a place where you rest on the way whenever you're not well, like a hospital. It would have been understood that he was probably contracted some type of terminal disease, and they came to the understanding that it's because he didn't circumcise his child. He didn't follow the one commandment. There's no law of Moses yet. So you have to look at it like this. Moses was called by God to be a figure that will liberate his people from the bondage of slavery in Egypt. And then also, we know Moses will be the representation of the old covenant and the law of God. He would be the representative of God to his people, delivering the strict law that God will use to separate his people from the rest of the world. And now this agent that God has chosen, that has gone out to go fulfill his word, he himself does not fulfill the one covenant, physical covenant that he was supposed to in order to separate himself from the rest of the world. That covenant that God gave to Abraham and to his sons and said, by this you will know that you are not of the rest of the world of the men of Canaan, sacrificed. And for him to hypocritically go forward and not have that completed, God was not bending the rules. God was not being played with. He said, you bring up a valid point. Chosen one. You need to go and represent me in my fullness. And it goes to show kind of the idea of where Moses was at mentally, and how he really did let go of his heritage when he left the land of Egypt, how distraught he was, how broken down he was, how little he felt of himself. He really did just not want to be associated anymore. He lived in blissful ignorance in the land of Midian. He didn't even raise up his kids, as we see, as Hebrews, because they weren't circumcised. It's really telling to where Moses' mindset was at the time. So God does this. Obviously, it works out because Moses' wife is a straight savage and just she must have known. Because again, remember that the Midianites were descendant from Abraham, and Abraham and Keturah, not Abraham and Sarai. Or Sarah, excuse me. And so they would have been familiar with that one specific covenant. And remember how important that was, that even Abraham was like, swear to me by this. This is the one physical representation of the covenant that I have with God. You know, it was a holy thing and it was a very specific thing. So demanding his life for him not fulfilling that one covenant, when you look at it in that light, to me, it's justifiable.
I agree. I mean, you bring up an amazing point, an amazing kind of resolution to what this could be, because other than what you just said, him being sick, makes no other sense. No other sense on why God would try to kill him. I like that. I like that theory.
I mean, it makes sense.
It's just a theory. We got to remember, guys, this is just a theory. It's not 100%, but it makes
pretty like educated
the
theory.
most sense. Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, again, you see these type of portions of the Bible that seem so outlandish and so out of place. And you see a God is like, how could a God do that? He calls Moses and immediately seeks to kill him. That seems crazy. Like you said, he might have just gone back to his throne and was like, never mind. And then go, it's like, that's not what happens. If we look at the Bible in its context and we understand the full greater meaning behind the stories, we see a consistent, righteous and holy God that's demanding the same things throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Either way, the fact that Moses, if he was ill, from the text, it's clear that God caused him to be ill. So it's still God that did it.
Exactly. That's why they understood it was like a divine punishment at that point. Now, let's continue on to Exodus chapter 5 and begin this encounter, this beginning of the battle of the gods, if you will. We're obviously
it's kind of like one of those. It's kind of like one of those contracts that you sign, and then later on, a bunch of like like things start happening. Like, oh, well, now you owe this. Now you do this. It's like, whoa. I didn't see any of this in like the original contract, but it's like in really small writing. So this is kind of like Moses signed this contract with God, and he didn't realize he didn't read the actual agreement fully when he should have. And this is one of the consequences that God just boom. You're down.
Well,
right, continue.
It's more like, it's like God's like, well, at the very minimum, you have to be an Israelite, and they're circumcised,
which he was. Like, I'm under the impression that he is circumcised.
Yeah, I think so, because remember that he was raised by his mother as a wet nurse. That, if we believe Hatshepsut adopted him, she found her mother and would have paid her double her wages, which is another thing, that because she was such an economically minded queen regent, that idea that she's paying double for wages, like she was very money minded, she was very about the economy of Egypt. It's another little indicator and detail that kind of gives credence to the idea. But anyway,
who's Hatshepsut?
I'm joking.
All right, let's go. Let's
get into it. Let's get into the story.
Back to Moses.
Yeah,
that's why we're here, right?
Get into the 10 plagues. Now we have obviously the first encounter between Moses, Aaron, and Pharaoh coming back. God does what he said he would do.
So, let me read from
Exodus chapter 5, beginning with. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. My little thing closed out, and I don't have the memorization.
You should.
I know. I'm not good.
You're not.
Oh, yeah. Just start with 1.
Obviously. Afterward, Moses and Aaron went and told Pharaoh, "Thus says the Lord God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." And Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, nor will I let Israel go." So they said, "The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Please let us go 3 days' journey into the desert and sacrifice to the Lord our God, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword." Then the king of Egypt said to them, "Moses and Aaron, why do you take the people from their work? Get back to your labor." And Pharaoh said, "Look, the people of the land are many now, and you make them rest from their labor?" So the same day Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying, "You shall no longer give the people straw to make brick as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves, and you shall lay on them the quota of bricks which they made before. You shall not reduce it, for they are idle. Therefore they cry out, saying, 'Let us go and sacrifice to our God.' Let more work be laid on the men, that they may labor in it, and let them not regard false words."
So it's going great. Obviously.
I mean, the very first part, I got to see it from Pharaoh's point of view. These guys walk in, it's like, "Let my people go that they may hold a feast for me in the wilderness." If I was Pharaoh, I'd be like, "Wait, why in the wait, so you want me to let all these people that are building my monuments and my cities, you want me to just let them go?" And you got to remember, these are about like, it's almost 1 million people. Some scholars say like 600,000, but not 2 million, but it's a lot of people. Because later on, there's a whole census in Deuteronomy or something, or Numbers. There's a census, and it shows that there was like about 600,000 people in the census.
Men. That doesn't include the women and the children.
Well, okay.
Remember, they would only count men. That's why we have like millions. I have an idea.
All anyway, right. So it's a lot of people, but Pharaoh's just kind of looking at this like, wait. So you want me to let 2 million people, let's just say 2 million, 2 million people just go out into the wilderness and just host some giant rave or whatever, like a huge party and a feast? Yeah. Why? Like, why? If I was Pharaoh, I'd say no too. Because that's
400 years and you've never asked for this once. Now all of a sudden, we'll totally come back. Yeah, no, it doesn't work out. And to be fair, let's this is frustrating because remember, Moses argued with God back and forth so much that God gave him Aaron to be his mouthpiece, his spokesperson, and his instrument to be used in these processes. But God doesn't just send Moses with like no idea. God tells him, he's like, it's not going to work. Pharaoh's going to say no after you say, let me do this. And there's a little bit of a back and forth between the officers of Pharaoh and the officers of the Israelites. Obviously, they're organized into different troops into different work camps, and they're told you don't have any more straw that you can use to make your brick. You have to now essentially work double time to get your own materials and then also do the slave labor, and your quota will not be reduced. And even when they come back, it's so funny. They kind of just call them idle again. Like, you're idle. You know, literally twice called it when they try to bring it up. And so the Israelites and the elders come to Pharaoh or to Moses and Aaron after this, and they're just like, man, God judge you himself because you've literally made us abhorrent in the sight of Pharaoh, and you've like to the point where they're going to kill us now because we can't perform this. And Moses actually goes to God, and this is what
stayed away, Moses.
Moses is such a frustrating figure at this point because one, he's arguing with God before he was even called after giving these miracles. Yeah. And then two, the first time Pharaoh says no and it doesn't go his way, he cries to God and says, Lord, why have you brought trouble on your people? You have not delivered us at all like you said you would, you know? And he's just like, I can imagine God face palming. Like, I literally told you.
We got to remember.
That's why I gave you miracles.
He's been there. Well, he's been there for a while. He doesn't go straight to Pharaoh. He goes around and he's performing these miracles to all the people. And then he creates a gathering when he's like, all right, guys, we're going to go see Pharaoh now. And he gathers all these Hebrew people that have watched him do all these, you know, the whole snake thing. And then also the what's it called?
The leprosy hands, and then the pouring the water.
Shazam hands.
Before this, he did all these miracles before the elders.
Oh, and then also the cup, right? He did also the cup thing. No, that wasn't
the throwing the cup of water on the ground and it turns to blood. Yeah, those are the three signs that he gave to Moses.
So he's doing all of those before he gets to Pharaoh, and then now he shows up at Pharaoh doing these same things. And honestly, well, we didn't we didn't get to that part yet, did we? No.
What?
No.
Where he's doing the snake thing.
No,
we have definitely not gotten to that part yet.
Okay, so
we did cover a bunch of Egyptian history, though.
Well, this was the first encounter with Pharaoh. The God Moses and Aaron does what he does, and God like going into, and we're going to cover the portion of the 10 plagues of Egypt covers chapters 7 to 12 of Exodus.
Yeah,
Nathan's not going to read the entire thing, but going into Exodus chapter 6, we see that God responds to Moses very, very nicely, in my opinion. He gives them some encouragement. He says that with a strong hand, he will let them go and he will drive them out of the land. And God spoke to Moses and kind of powerfully saying,
I am the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as God Almighty, but by my name, Lord, I was not known to them. I have also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage, in which they were strangers. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians keep in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. Therefore, say to the children of Israel, I am the Lord. I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. I will rescue you from their bondage, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm, and with great judgments.
Yes. So then the next portion is like a quick breakdown of the genealogies of Moses and Aaron. And we're not going to get into that. I'm not going to read that. It's just some more scriptural evidence to kind of show who they were and why they were there and how they were from the tribe of Levi. But then God establishes again that Aaron will be
the spokesperson,
because Moses keeps saying that, you know, I can't
talk.
I am of uncircumcised lips. How shall Pharaoh heed me? And then God reestablishes that Aaron will be his mouthpiece.
Cut them lips off.
We're going to notice.
Cut them off.
We're going to notice a very. We're going to notice a very interesting evolution of Moses through this experience that he'll have, pretty much destroying a nation with the power of God.
You know what I find kind of interesting as well is that Pharaoh. I mean, dude, these guys are just walking in and kind of threatening Pharaoh. that's something you really don't do. You don't do that. And then you don't do that with the knowledge of you should expect to be killed. Like, I mean, imagine even being a messenger. Sometimes if you're a bad messenger and bring bad news, you're probably going to die. So
for sure.
The fact that they weren't killed by Pharaoh kind of shows that there was some type of importance of Moses, not just for the Israelites, but also for the Egyptians. The Egyptians must have known who he was. And that might be why that Pharaoh just kind of let him live and let him be probably out of respect.
Well, remember that God said that he's going to make Moses as a god to Pharaoh and as Aaron as his prophet. So God, I believe that Moses, when he walked in, he had the air of the presence of God before him, and there was divine protection in that beginning initial stage. Because you're right, Pharaoh could have easily just turned and went, "All right,
off with his head,
kill those 2 people that are trying to steal all my slaves. Like, what are we doing here?" But instead of that, we have these series of encounters that Moses and Aaron have with Pharaoh. And
is this the first example of plot armor?
This is actually this is the first example of divine plot armor.
Like, Moses clearly should have been killed, but
because he's the main character,
I mean, Pharaoh probably asked him, like, "Pharaoh, why don't you kill him?" I don't know. Like,
I always forget.
I want to kill him, but when I see the guy, I don't know. He said he disrespects me, and I don't kill him.
He's just so. I bet you he was a good-looking baby. I bet you he was a very good-looking child.
Like, because you're figuring because it was a good-looking baby.
Get it? I throwback
see,
there.
It says that earlier.
I didn't want to say that he was probably attractive because I don't know if he was, but I mean, if he was
a good-looking babe.
I mean, if he was a good-looking baby, but haven't you noticed how good-looking babies usually turn out to be ugly adults?
That's not true at all.
I just pulled that route out of
at all.
Yeah, I got some good-looking babies. Well,
you see celebrities as children; they all look pretty good as children.
I feel like this is an inappropriate train. This is my fault. I'm sorry. Let's get to chapter 7.
Like Gerber babies, and they turn.
If you got a good-looking baby out there, expect them to grow
more like kids.
Ugly. They will be ugly.
Like Leonardo DiCaprio
is a different example.
Yeah,
he doesn't count.
Kind of looked like Leo his whole life.
I mean, how can we judge examples of if a baby's pretty or ugly?
Yeah, let's. I'm just saying what the Bible said, guys. I don't know.
Every parent looks at their child and is like, "Oh, you're the most beautiful thing in the world."
I don't.
That's not true. But no,
you have a beautiful baby.
Yeah, your daughter's cute.
I know. I'm just kidding. I love my daughter, obviously.
I don't know how because
she takes. Thank God she takes after my wife.
Yeah.
Her IQ level is so far ahead of yours. I don't know why she's not on the podcast.
Anyway, let's
yes, let's talk about how dumb you are.
Yeah, a 3-year-old is smarter than you.
I always wanted to bring this up. Now that we're here, finally.
All right,
this has actually been the point of the podcast.
42 minutes in, let's get into the prologue of the 10 plagues. All right, so Moses goes to seek Pharaoh again. And he tells them that I will harden Pharaoh's heart and multiply the signs and wonders in Egypt. This is interesting because this brings up this will be a recurring theme throughout the 10 plagues. But Moses and Pharaoh have these encounters, and Pharaoh's heart is hardened, whether by himself or by God. There's different portions. Now, we're going to get into it, but we have the miraculous miracle of the rod. So Moses and Aaron meet together with Pharaoh, and God says that when Pharaoh speaks to you and says, "Show a miracle of yourselves," then you will take Aaron's rod and you will cast it before Pharaoh, and it will become a serpent. So Moses and Aaron, they go before Pharaoh and they do exactly as commanded, and realize that Aaron is the one holding the rod right now, and he casts it down, and it becomes a quote unquote serpent. Now, something interesting about this.
Look at this.
You just
Look at me. I'm a snake. I'm a slithery snake.
Yes, I did snake jazz. All right. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. That was really funny. If you guys ever watched Rick and Morty.
Well, the thing is, because they have their magicians throw snakes too.
So that's the combat, and you'll see this start to come up in the first couple plagues. The Pharaoh doesn't just go, holy crap, a stick you just threw down became a snake. They go, I bet you we can do it. And he calls all his magicians and sorcerers and wise men of Egypt. And they did, it says, like manner with their enchantments. And every man threw down his rod. But here's the thing. I did some research. And when Moses was at the burning bush and he threw down, like God said, his staff and it became a serpent, Moses was afraid of it and jumped away, knowing that it was probably not just a regular snake. It's probably a dangerous snake. But the word that was translated from the Hebrew there for serpent was a different word when he cast it down before Pharaoh. And I did a study and I found that it was like known based on the context of the specific word that word meant more than just a snake. It was like a terrifying serpent, a terrifying reptilian like creature. Like it was like, imagine a monstrous snake. Like it was one that was obviously bigger and crazier.
So it wasn't the Hollywood version of like
it wasn't
cobra.
just like a king cobra. Like it was known that word was like denoting also for like sea monsters and reptilious like beasts and stuff like that.
So a mini
like,
Leviathan just shows up out of this
like,
staff and just
think about it. Think about it. It was a snake that ate every other snake in front of everybody, and it was
I'm
like
a snake.
I'm a slippery snake.
I'm a
We gotta get past the snake, dude.
Yo, hey,
I'm a slippery snake.
To tie in with, because, well, actually, the plagues haven't started really yet. Right?
No, we haven't started with the plagues.
So I'll wait.
Well, we're gonna get there though. And these plagues are gonna be fantastic.
But you got to remember,
we
have to remember that Egypt is built on the idea of magic and sorcery and stuff like that.
Yes.
This is not stuff that they haven't seen really before. They're used to seeing all these types of things. So that's probably exactly how you said. Like Pharaoh's not caught off guard, and he every single time Moses and Aaron do one of these wonders and signs, Pharaoh's looking at his guys like, well, all right, well, what do you got? You know, like kind of like let's match it.
Like let's. I bet you we can do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to bring up another. And I know I talked to you guys about this, but the listeners haven't heard this concept. There's another Moses concept out there, and obviously I'm not a believer of it, but I think it's an interesting one to bring up. Now, since Moses is brought up in Egypt and taught all the secrets of Egypt, and we're going to see later, there's another scholar that. An Egyptian scholar that talks about the secrets of the ways of the magic of Egypt, and they're taught specifically on how to do spells and magical things and sorceries.
Oh, I think I've heard of this before. Yeah,
and because
Moses was a magician wizard.
Yes, because Moses was a magician, was taught in the ways of a magician.
A wizard.
He was kind of like a wizard. Have you noticed? Have you noticed?
Had a staff?
Every he's an old guy, probably has a beard. He's got this staff.
Well, let's go actually real quick.
Okay.
It does say that he was 80 and Moses was 83, or Aaron was 83. I didn't mention this, but the Bible literally quotes in the first 5 verses of the Exodus 7 that
I just want you, if you are listening and if you're able to use your phone, just look up a picture of Gandalf. All right.
Oh my gosh,
that's a great interpretation. Gandalf. Or
shall let my people go.
Yeah, exactly. But
that was really bad. I apologize for that, Nathan.
There is a lot of that we do know.
I'm so sorry, Nathan.
The power of God is in this staff, and we'll see this staff being used multiple times, not only throughout the plague, but also when they're in the desert and also when they're fighting these battles. The staff is being used. Now,
the staff is important. I mean, God did say, take this staff with you. I mean, I don't know if God just enhanced the staff with his power or it was actually just the presence of God. But
to be honest, I don't know.
I've heard that.
In this concept, they're saying that every wizard, every sorcerer has some type of object that they use, either a staff or a wand that they use to create their magical lalaludas or whatever. and Moses. I just want to say Merlin, Gandalf, all the big guys all have.
There's a trope behind it. It's a thing, and this is one of the earliest.
The only difference here
is
Moses isn't using his own power. He's under the power of God. All these other magicians or whatever, they're using their power, and it's by their will they're able to create these supernatural type of things. But at the end of the day,
you're right. I mean,
God's power is greater than any other dark power, which dark power exists. You got to remember, dark power does exist. You know, there are people nowadays that I mean, you see even magicians. I mean, David Blaine. I don't know if you guys ever seen David Blaine, but
okay. Well, he's more of an illusionist. I mean, he's a actual like dark magic and witchcraft and stuff like that. Yeah, there are real demonic forces in this world that have that power. David Blaine is just really good at like sleight of hand.
I don't know, man. He walked on water.
I don't know, man. He like stayed in the ice block. Didn't he stay for like a long time?
He did some really unexplainable things.
He did a lot of crazy.
But what does David Blaine have to do with Moses?
No, David Blaine has to do with Moses.
I'm just telling.
The sorcerers that Pharaoh used. I'm just saying that as like a real word example.
You're right.
He has nothing to do. But Josh basically said Moses was Gandalf, so you know that's how we got to David Blaine.
Thank you, Josh.
Actually,
Gandalf. No, but that is something I've read before, that he probably was taught in the ways of ancient Egyptian magic and came back and counteracted that to reveal his people. Lord of the Rings,
I'm telling you,
famously written like
I know
Tolkien was
I know what you're saying.
A Christian, and a lot of like Christian ideology was built into his mythology. Same thing with C.S. Lewis and the Chronicles of Narnia.
Anybody read the first 6 books of the Bible, or not even, just read Genesis and Exodus, and then watch Lord of the Rings, and then The Hobbit, and then The Rings of Power, and you're gonna be like mind blown by all the similarities. It's like it almost feels like you're watching the Bible story. I mean,
why do I feel like did that?
It's like not close at all, but you know, it's the same.
Aragorn, we must go to
There's
Mordor.
Like nothing similar whatsoever, but you know, it is. It's pretty much there. It has people.
I mean, Josh said it, so obviously, yeah.
There's like zero similarity
Gandalf
whatsoever.
falls from the skies in a bawling fit of fire. What?
Okay.
Fit of fire.
Yeah, words.
There's no hobbits in the Bible, though, buddy. You know, it's not a Schmeagol. There's not like multiple gods of something like Gandalf and like all these other things. And
there were multiple gods because we see the Egyptians worshiping and serving.
They aren't real
gods.
Though. That's the whole point of Moses.
No.
God is actually real.
Elohim Adonai.
There's one God above all, but all these little guys are either could be the Watchers or are fallen angels, but they are beings that.
Listen, guys. The name Elohim was used to denote like a duality, and it was like a multiple. There are some like, and again, I don't believe this at all, but there are some that believe that in the Bible that there wasn't just one God, that there was a pantheon of gods, and it was monotheism was something that was later installed. But of course,
I've heard the same theory that's why
God in this Bible, literally here, he says, "I am the Lord, I am one." He literally calls himself "I am," not "we are." So I think it's.
I'm not saying that there are multiple gods. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, you do that. It's a pretty trippy experience to watch Lord of the Rings after reading Genesis and Exodus.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the Egyptians.
That's literally what he said. And the Egyptians were hugely magic based. They had magicians.
But they worshiped their gods. But I'm not saying that their gods didn't exist. They were real beings. They just weren't God. And they weren't like in the Egyptians, they worshiped them as gods, but they weren't gods. They were just fallen angels that decided to.
Okay, that's where you're going.
That decided to take over that city and be worshipped.
The gods of ancient civilizations that weren't God,
fallen angels,
were probably demonic fallen angels or something like that. And So let's get back to it, man. Let's get into the first plague. This prologue, this introduction, this first miracle. Obviously, God is superior. He stands on top. His staff and his miracle consumed literally the recreation attempt and the duplication attempt of the
My stick's
Egyptian
bigger than
magicians.
yours.
Pretty much exactly that. So that obviously, but very interestingly, we have the verse where it says that Pharaoh's heart grew hard. Notice how it doesn't say God grew Pharaoh's heart hard. Just pay attention. Pharaoh's heart grew hard, and he did not heed them, as the Lord had said. So the Lord...
Yeah, but doesn't it say
Nathan,
earlier that,
if you will read
doesn't God say earlier that he would harden Pharaoh's heart?
He did, but I want to bring up a point with this. But Nathan, read
go.
Starting with verse 14.
So the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hard. He refuses to let the people go. We just said that.
I know. I like to repeat.
Go to Pharaoh in the morning when he goes out to the water, and he shall stand by the river's bank to meet him. And the rod which has turned to a serpent you shall take in your hand. And you shall say to him, the Lord God of the Hebrews has sent me to you, saying, let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness. But indeed, until now you would not hear. Thus says the Lord, by this you shall know that I am the Lord. Behold, I will strike the waters which are in the river with the rod that is in my hand, and they shall be turned to blood. And the fish that are in the river shall die, and the river shall stink, and the Egyptians will loathe to drink the water of the river.
Guys, I'm sorry, but I do have to pee. Please don't be mad.
I'm not mad.
Josh,
You should have a bottle right there so that you can pee in the bottle.
You should just wear an adult diaper, bud. Hey, do you think God made Moses use a staff because God knew that it's kind of like trying to meet the Egyptians in a place where they kind of can, understand that it's got, because I guess the Egyptians, all their magicians always had objects, like you said, and God was kind of meeting them at their level.
I don't necessarily think that it was just to meet at the Egyptians' level. I think that it was a universal type of thing that was known. When I brought up the example that all these wizards and magicians all had either a wand or a staff, and I'm using Hollywood as one of them. I mean, look at Aladdin. You got Jafar. He has this staff, and the staff has a gem inside of it, and the staff has power that
Buddy,
without
you
it,
gotta stop giving Disney examples, but jeez.
I don't care. I think that there's some and a good amount of truth behind these movies and behind a lot of the media and a lot of the stories that are given.
I can't read that.
I mean, even look at Transformers. Transformers is another interesting story that kind of goes with the story of the Watchers and them protecting the humans and stuff like that, and they're from another world. Transformers is another big one. I mean, look at the story of
the staff,
the Men in Black.
Jesus.
Whoa, that's true. That is absolutely
well.
true.
Jesus didn't have to use a staff because Jesus is the staff. Yes.
Well, no, he's the true vine. Is that correct?
Yes, but here's the thing: what is a staff made out of? Staff is made out of wood. What was Jesus known to be a master of? Jesus was a carpenter by trade. He was a master of working with wood. Not only that, he died on a cross. He was nailed and then rose up again from being killed on a basically like a tree. So there's, I mean, like, yeah,
Josh,
he could have
trying to pull. You're grasping at straws, bud.
Not grasping at straws.
You had a point. Hey, all right, so let's get back to it.
You finished, okay, so the waters turned to blood.
Yes, that's where I was
talking about the waters turning to blood.
Oh boy! So hold on. We're going to establish a trend of breaking down the plagues.
Beep, beep. Reverse.
Thank you. I just want to make a point. I did some research on to like
that was like a joke you tell.
God,
that was me being you.
God is establishing his supremacy as a sovereign God, the only God, the Lord, their God, the great I am. He is going to conquer Egypt, not only just by impressing on them plagues and shaking the very, physical, economic, and, governmental structure that they have. He's going to attack their very religion and their gods. As Josh mentioned before, they're very big on magic systems. They're very big on their gods. And every single one of these plagues has a correlating direct attack towards one of their sacred gods that have some type of power over this. And God is going to so thoroughly destroy this nation in order to prove a point that it's incredible. So when we have this first plague of the blood, the Nile River, which was the lifeblood of this entire nation, the reason that they were who they were, the Nile River is not only the reason that they're a nation, but it's supposed to have godly connection to the point where like it's
the Nile River is supposed to be the blood of one of the gods. I think it was which god was it? Ra? No.
Well, the god Happy is the god being attacked here in the first plague.
I'm happy.
HAPM, usually depicted as a fat old man with women's breasts and a swollen belly, with the crown of papyrus and lotus plants. His androgynous appearance represented the fertility of the land, resulting in the Nile flood. So we mentioned how when the Nile flood the Nile River would flood every year, through this section of the plains, it would recede, and that level of topsoil would be so enriched and so fertile that it would essentially pretty much carry the economy and the
it gave life to Egypt.
The
Nile River was extremely important to Egypt's economy.
Oh, dude, it was everything. It wouldn't exist. And Pharaoh himself, being a representative or a descendant of the gods, which gives him the right to rule, was one of his responsibilities as Pharaoh was to ensure that the Nile River was producing. Remember, that's one of the reasons we talked about in the Joseph story, why Pharaoh was so happy that there was somebody that predicted not only a famine, because that meant that he, as Pharaoh, could justify his rule in establishing the fact that, or in carrying the fact that he could protect from famine and he could still give sustenance to the land, even though there was a
it's ridiculous. They were like, "Oh, it's the Pharaoh's responsibility to make sure." And the Pharaoh goes out in the morning, river.
Well, it's always the guys
still.
The guy in charge, whoever the guy. I mean, look at America now. Whether with the gas prices or anything that happens in America, you're always going to look at the guy in charge, right? Even if it wasn't even their fault, you're going to look at the guy in charge and you're going to blame that guy. It's got to be his fault because he's the guy in charge. If you're the oldest sibling out of a troop of kids in your family, whether it was your fault or not, you're going to be the one that's going to be blamed. That's how it works. That's how it rolls.
But Pharaoh's heart grew hard in this, it says.
Thanks for reiterating that for the fifth, sixth, seventh time.
It's going to be repeated, and there's a reason for it. But this first plague...
So it just grows harder and harder? What, his heart becomes a rock?
Well, what ends up happening is that...
a lot of cholesterol.
Is that Pharaoh's response was that...
His arteries are hard.
You could just see veins popping out of his head. I don't know, guys. I just don't know.
Arteries. It's fine. It's fine.
You got all these questions, and I just don't know.
Maybe
I want to kill him, but I just don't know why I'm not killing him.
So the god Happy was the god attached to the river, being the god of fertility and life from the.
Let me just say something about these.
He was directly attacked with this first plague.
Something about this whole god thing. What's very key, I think, to also, in my opinion, about what's going on here is that this really has not much to do with necessarily Egypt. Just like how with the first, with the flood, it didn't have much to do with, in my belief, with the humans. It had to do with the fact that the deities, basically the watchers, the angelic beings that came to earth completely corrupted everything and God punished them, and out of doing so, because of all their intermarrying and everything, he had to wipe out and restart. Same thing what's going on over here in Egypt. Egypt has become this superpower, and it's and basically these angelic beings. I don't even want to call them angelic beings anymore. These watchers, I'm going to just use those. These watchers have got a little bit over their heads about it, and now they are. They might even have the idea that they're above God, and they're being worshipped, and God's basically showing them. It's like, listen, He's punishing them from what it looks like, more than he's actually looking to punish Egypt in itself. He's going after the gods.
I see where you're coming from, but from what we read, that Egypt definitely suffers. The people. Well, suffer,
Egypt definitely suffers,
and there's it's the Pharaoh, the man who is against it, and his heart's being hardened, and it's very
but
much
what
so
did
a
Pharaoh
man
think?
versus man
Pharaoh is
problem.
considered basically like a god, right?
Yes, but he wasn't. We know that he wasn't. That was the way they justified their rule. But Pharaoh himself is the antagonist of this story. We know this because that's what the Bible tells us. And then we'll see through the plagues that it's very much so the people attacked, and it's their belief system that is attacked. I don't believe it was actually the fallen angels that was representing the deities. That's fine. I mean, yeah, there's an idea behind these gods that they worship. Obviously, we see that one of the responses is that they replicated, the magicians came out again, and Pharaoh sought to replicate this flood now, or this turning into blood. Now, what's interesting about this is that even if they could replicate it, they didn't help undo it. They just Pharaoh, I don't know why. It's just, thanks for making more blood. Can you make it not blood too? Or
Can you do a reverse osmosis on this whole thing and make it back to water?
Fun fact, it wasn't just the river. It said everything that was in stone jars or wooden jars. It was all the drinkable water that came from the Nile River. Anything that was water from the Nile, whether it was in your house or whether it was in the Nile River, was turned to blood. The fish die, and it smelled of putrefaction. Like, it was disgusting, and it was actually deadly. Everything was rotting and smelling. And it says for 7 days, the river was blood. And that was the first plague of Egypt. Attacking directly Happy Pharaoh and establishing
because we got
that
into
God
the plagues.
God is not here to play around.
Because we got into the plagues, let me bring in another kind of. There's this text. It's an old Egyptian text, and it was dated basically from these times, and it's called the Ipuwer Papyrus. And it's an Egyptian scholar that I wouldn't even say really a scholar. It was an Egyptian that wrote down, and a lot of scholars nowadays believe that it must have been basically like an eyewitness, because the way he puts it out like a poem, and the way that he's writing it all out, it had to have been as if he was an eyewitness, because it is just so in depth about it. And I mean, he's talking about a world in chaos around Egypt, and he's also talking about like the Nile River, how it was turned into blood. He's talking about like all these different things that are just happening in Egypt at this time, and he's even saying like like every written thing, and this also kind of leads to why we don't have much on this, that every written thing in Egypt that the scholars or that was in the tombs, that was kept as secret, was all being destroyed. And I mean, you just see. I encourage you, especially Andrew, and Nathan. I encourage you guys to read this and look into it, because it's an amazing poem.
You said the what papyrus?
The Ipuwer Papyrus.
The Ipuwer Papyrus. It kind of gives like what could have been a calamitous account from ancient Egypt.
Yes. Now everybody believes that it was definitely written by an Egyptian of that time. Just the discrepancy kind of is on this is what?
Yeah. No, I was agreeing with you.
Oh, the discrepancy a little bit is on if they should take it as if it was honestly, I don't know. I don't know because I was trying to look up about the discrepancy and nowhere it really clearly states. It just kind of shows like a heretic work, basically, which means it's
ancient Egyptian.
Yeah, it's taken as like a religious thing. So if it's religious, it can't be historic. You know what I mean?
Hermetic.
That's the problem.
So the plagues.
Okay, yeah, we got a lot of plagues to go through still. Let's now I knew that once we get to the plagues, obviously not all of them we're gonna spend a whole lot of time on.
Why not? This is my favorite one, the frogs.
The frog, I didn't say we're not gonna spend a lot of time on the frogs, but I mean we have
Were all the frogs turning gay?
So,
What?
Well, nowadays there's this whole conspiracy that they're turning the frogs gay.
No, it's not a conspiracy. It was confirmed. He said that Alex Jones said that there was chemtrails being brought out, flown over, and the water was being polluted with these chemicals that were turning the frogs gay, and that people were next. And
what?
You never heard? This is so like viral. Like the frogs are gay.
I don't.
Alex's theory,
and it's like
Alex
it was
Jones'
it was
theory
proven true.
Has been proven true.
I don't.
It was proven true. Like there was
Really?
like, chemicals that are inducing like male frogs to grow female urges and female genitalia and then sleep with each other, and they weren't reproducing. It was like a thing.
And we're next.
Yeah, it's like chemtrails makes us gay. Okay,
Yeah,
anyway,
we can kind of see it.
Okay.
God, second plague. We're gonna make it through this. We're gonna do this. Nathan,
I can't look at frogs the same.
right. Second plague, God says to him, tell them to let my people go, and if you refuse, I will smite your territory with frogs. So the rivers shall bring forth frogs. Aaron goes out, lifts his hands with the rod over the rivers and streams of everything of Egypt, and he stretches out his hands, and frogs came up out of the river after it was blood.
Ribbit.
And they covered they covered the land. And they covered the land everywhere. The reason why this was I can't stop thinking about gay frogs.
You guys are the ones that brought it up. I've never heard of it. Ribbit.
Stop doing that.
All right.
So the land was covered entirely. The homes, the beds, inside the cupboards, the whole place, they were everywhere. And the problem with this is in Egyptian culture, frogs were considered pretty actual sacred. You couldn't just kill them or kick them out. The god Heket was a frog-headed goddess of birth, and frogs were sacred and not allowed to be touched or killed, usually. And not only that, but they were pretty much just running rampant. And
imagine how annoying that would be if, like, you had a frog problem, but you're not allowed to kick them out of your house because of your stupid beliefs.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people became atheists that way.
Like,
well, a lot of people frogs. A lot of people were probably very thirsty because this is 7 days after the first plague with the waters.
Well, now it's not. Now it's not blood, but every time you try to grab a cup, there's a frog in it.
Yeah, so everybody's thirsty and is drinking blood water, and now there's frog blood water, and you're just kind of like, what's going on here? I'm sick of this. All these gay frogs.
I didn't know that was a joke.
Try it, guys. I want to be funny.
All right.
But anyway, another interesting note, the magicians reenact this as well. Somehow they magically bring about more frogs. And again, hilarious because they didn't make the frogs go away. They just add more frogs. I can see magicians there just like, It's like, dude, what that?
Can you imagine their assistants having to get buckets and get a bunch of frogs together? Like, you release them when I say abracadabra.
All the assistants.
He's like releasing a bucket of frogs over a bunch of frogs that are already there. They're just like, there's so many frogs already here. Why are we doing this trick?
Oh, dude. So anyway, Pharaoh calls him and says and asks him to entreat the Lord that he may take away the frogs from my people, and I will let the people go that they may sacrifice. So Moses does this, And says, tomorrow they will go, let it be according to your word. Pharaoh responds. And so he does, he prays over it. It says Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried out to the Lord concerning the frogs. And so the Lord did according to the word of Moses, and the frogs, they didn't go back into the river. They just died. So now they just have piles of dead frogs. And it says,
and like literally the minute Pharaoh sees that, he's like, my heart is hardened once more.
It says they literally gathered them together in heaps, and the land stank.
And
just smelly.
Literally the blood. Second Pharaoh was like, nah. We don't have what frog problem? We don't have a frog problem.
So Pharaoh, he hardened his heart.
This Pharaoh was kind of an idiot.
He was something.
He was kind of a dumb guy.
But he hardened his heart. Very important to note. Again, I'm going to bring this up. So now we're on the third plague. You know what the third plague was?
Lice.
Well, even that's mice. Kind of different scholars go back and forth. It could have been lice, or it could have been like these little gnats of flies. Yeah,
some type of
flies is next after lice.
Yeah, I think it's
there's flies and then there's little flies.
Well, the lice is worse because lice gets up on everybody, and there's a reason why the magicians and the people that were they were serving the gods or whatever. They were supposed to be cleanly shaven, bald, no hair on them, so that lice can't attach to them at all. And they were even affected. It was like these crazy high-powered lice. And he says to grab, stretch your rod. He says to Aaron to literally take the rod and smack the dust of the land, and the dust became lice throughout all of the land of Egypt.
That's so scary.
And it was all old man and beast. Everything in the land, all the dust. Imagine, we're in the desert of Egypt. All the dust became lice. So the magicians worked with their entrancement
to bring forth. That's why I read. Andrew,
yeah, sorry.
To bring forth lice, but they could not.
This is the first time
there were replicate. Lice on man and beast. And the magician said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." That Pharaoh's heart grew hard, and he did not heed them, just as the Lord had said.
Just a bunch of important to note, scratching everywhere.
We haven't mentioned this up until this point, but understand that throughout all of this, the land of Gershom, where the Israelites resided, they were unaffected. They weren't being it's just Israel. The main city, Egypt, was lice, frog, blood everywhere.
They just did not have enough Listerine to take care of this problem.
And the Israelites were good. And it's very interesting that for the lice, the gods that were being destroyed were the god Set, which was a chaos god and the god of the desert, and Geb, which was the god of the earth or the dirt or the land. And it was actually Happy and Geb. They married, and in their Egyptian mythology, they believe that's where people came from. Whenever the land and the Nile River consummated a marriage and had children, that's where humanity comes from. So, but this is the first time the magicians failed to replicate it. And even so, even though Pharaoh's guys are this is the finger of God. This is actually a deity killing us. Pharaoh's heart grew hard, and we move on into the fourth plague,
which is the flies.
Lord of the flies.
So right now we have a bunch of people that can't drink water because it's all blood. It all smells.
Well, that was only for 7 days. The river isn't still blood at this point.
Okay. Well, either way, it smells like dirty frogs everywhere. Everybody's got lice, and now we have the flies.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's flies.
Nathan, let's read this one a little bit. This one's not too long. This one's just 10 verses, 20 to 30.
And the Lord said to Moses, "Rise early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh as he comes out to the water. Then say to him, 'Thus says the Lord, let my people go, that they may serve me. Or else, if you will not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies on you and your servants, on your people and into your houses. The houses of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground on which they stand. And in that day I will set apart the land of Goshen, in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, in order that you may know that I am the Lord in the midst of the land. I will make a difference between my people and your people. Boom. Tomorrow this sign shall be. And the Lord did so. Thick swarms of flies came into the house of Pharaoh, into his servants' houses, and into all the land of Egypt. The land was corrupted because of the swarms of flies.
Man.
And then we see the gods that were conquered.
Think how annoying one fly is. Just one fly in your house. Now imagine a whole swarm of them.
True story. Visited Australia many years ago. There's flies everywhere in certain parts of that place. You know those little hats with the dangly things they have?
Yeah.
Those are to ward off flies.
Really?
Yeah, that's like why it's an Australian type hat. I don't know if they still have a fly problem, but I know back then, like, you couldn't literally, there were some places I visited, like, you couldn't yawn outside. Like, flies would constantly be flying around, like hitting you in the face, hitting you in the mouth. It was unbelievably uncomfortable. We had a picnic one time, and like, you know, they love Nutella over there, and like they were trying to spread Nutella on bread. Flies all over the bread and Nutella. It was disgusting.
You remember when we were at Australia? My brother's house? We were at my brother's house a couple of weeks back, where I almost died from eating a jalapeno, and he opened the door for like a second, and the entire house, I've never seen this many flies swarm inside.
Those weren't flies. Those were like gnats.
Okay, so this was the gnat lice one, because they were like millions in every single corner of the house.
Yeah, because of the light. They were attracted to the light.
But the fact that so many came inside so quickly and how distressing it was, imagine just that times a million, to where you don't even see the ground. Everything is black because of the flies. And it's just, the god that was being conquered here in Egyptian culture was Uatchit, the god associated with flies. Her purpose was to protect the lives around the Nile Delta.
Maybe he should have been watching it.
So Uatchit was widely considered to be the god conquered in this specific flood, or in this specific plague. Interesting that Pharaoh again offers to get relief from the plague. He offers to allow the Israelites to go out and to worship, and then immediately changes his mind again. And we're on to
the fifth plague, livestock.
Hold on, wait a second.
Well, I want to stay on that one a little bit, because there is a whole thing of
Pharaoh hardened his heart again this time also.
Yes, and says go sacrifice to your God in the land. And then Moses was like, I'm not going to go and sacrifice for you guys, because if I come back, if I do this, like, and the Hebrew people find out, they're just going to kill us. Like, it's not going to work out. So I'm not going to go do this. And then Pharaoh just like, then don't go.
Yeah, I think, no, you're right. This is a really important point. I almost missed it. Thank you for reminding me. I think Pharaoh says here, go sacrifice to your God in the land, in this land. Like, don't leave, just sacrifice to him here. Why do you have to go 3 days away? And Moses said, it is not right to do so. It would be an abomination. You brought this up, Joshua. This was like your problem with the whole Joseph thing, because for him to be worshiping his own God in that country, he was at danger of being like ostracized, if not straight up killed, for religious purposes. And Moses had the same fear. He's like, if I did, it would be an abomination of the Egyptians, and they would surely kill us. Will they not stone us? Like, if we try to sacrifice here and against your gods, then there might be like some type of warfare, some type of retaliation. So he refuses that. And Pharaoh said, I will let you go that you may sacrifice in the wilderness, only you should not go too far away. Like, just stay here around the area. Intercede for me. And then Moses does so, and the swarms depart. But Pharaoh did not deal well with them, and then again reneges on his promise. He hardens his heart this time also, and would let his people go. And moving into Exodus chapter 9, we go into the fifth plague,
livestock
disease. So pestilence came upon. Nathan, if you want to read for this one, verses 1 through 7.
Then the Lord said to Moses, go on to Pharaoh and tell him, thus says the Lord God of the Hebrews, let my people go that they may serve me. For if you refuse to let them go and still hold them, behold, the hand of the Lord will be on your cattle in the field, on the horses, on the donkeys, on the camels, on the oxen, and on the sheep, a very severe pestilence. And the Lord will make a difference between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Egypt. So nothing shall die of all that belongs to the children of Israel. Then the Lord appointed a set time, saying, tomorrow the Lord will do this thing in the land. So the Lord did this thing on the next day, and all the livestock of Egypt died. But of the livestock of the children of Israel, not one died. Then Pharaoh sent, and indeed not even one of the livestock of the Israelites was dead. But the heart of Pharaoh became hard, and he did not let the people go.
So we're 5 plagues in, and Pharaoh is still hardening his heart and going back on his promises and just refusing to do. He is seeing crazy things not only called out, but happening, and just straight up says, nah, I won't let it. I don't care. He's just the most stubborn human to probably ever live, honestly. Like, name a more stubborn individual in the Bible.
In the Bible?
Yeah. Telling you, this one's it.
In the Bible. The Bible.
That's the book for me.
The donkey that Hashab was riding?
Who?
Like, you just made somebody up.
No. This was the guy that, yeah. So Hashab, I don't know how to really always say his name, but the guy that was riding the donkey and the donkey saw an angel of the Lord blocking the path. It was Hakab.
It was not Hakab.
It was Hakab, Hashab, Hadab, one of them. But that donkey was a very stubborn donkey, and did not want to go and.
You talking about Balaam?
Yeah,
Balaam.
Well,
or Romanian is Balaam, but Balaam's donkey? No.
My bad. I messed up the name. Okay, big time.
I guess. I mean, he was stubborn, but I'm sorry. Bad question. The god that was being conquered with the pestilence of the livestock would have been both Hathor, the goddess of love, beauty, and music, depicted as a cow. So it was a cow-looking individual, and cows were kind of like also not to the extent that Hindus worship cattle, but it was still kind of taken seriously. And especially there was a whole area of temples that they kept very good-looking cows for sacrifice and for worship. And Apis, the god of fertility and death, it was also a bull god. So these gods were directly known to be affected or trampled and attacked with this particular plague. Pharaoh remains unmoved, and moving on to chapter 9, verses 8 through 12, we go into the 6th plague of Egypt.
Boils.
No, Nathan. Sounded like balls.
like
explain how that plague works, Nathan.
You know, like those. Remember in McDonald's growing up, the playhouse, the balls pin. That everywhere.
I'm so upset that I asked. Read verses.
Kids used to pee in those things.
Yeah, I'm aware. So much fun.
Hold on. Okay, so the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, take for yourselves handfuls of ashes from a furnace, and let Moses scatter it towards the heavens in the sight of Pharaoh. And it will become fine dust in all the land of Egypt, and it will cause boils to break out in sores on man and beast throughout all the land of Egypt.
Why are you laughing, Josh?
Because with all the other ones, like Moses and Aaron, like, hey, let my people go or this will happen. But this time they just show up in front of Pharaoh with
they didn't even say let my people
pile
go
of dust and then just throw it up in the air, and then Pharaoh's just kind of like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen now?
Hey, wait, you're not gonna say I might have let your people go this time.
Man, he just throws it up in the air and walks away, and everybody just
I don't see it. I think in my mind, I envision it kind of like it wasn't like right in front of his face. It's like imagine like 200 yards or like 100 yards away. And Pharaoh, Moses and Aaron are just waiting for Pharaoh to just look their direction, and then right when he looks their direction, he's like, it's like releasing the doves, just like, Pharaoh's just kind of like, just scrambling, just kind of like, whoa, what's gonna happen? And then we see boils.
It said there was such like severe boils and sores that the magicians couldn't even stand up to come to try to even attempt to recreate it in front of Moses. They just stayed home and stayed in bed. Just like it just hurt too bad.
In the Pure Papyrus, he hits on this pretty intensely, and he says like everybody was just coming down with sicknesses. People couldn't, it was just such chaos. And you got to imagine the point of view from the Egyptians. Now, Pharaoh's heart was hardened, but the Egyptians were probably, and in his poem, the way that he's describing what's going on in Egypt with the Egyptians, it's showing that they're just, imagine riots everywhere. This is kind of what's going on. The Egyptians are mad, and they're mad at not only the Hebrews, but they're also kind of mad at the person in charge, which is Pharaoh. And in my mind, I can kind of see a bunch of Egyptians kind of like, yo, just let his people go. Like, just let them go. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of seeing all this crazy stuff happen. Just let them go, because the boils, now it's hitting them, and they're the ones getting really sick. I mean, there's the lice, there's the frogs, there's all these different things. These are external problems, but boils is more of a thing on the body, and people were just mad.
Yeah, this is where it starts to affect them. And there wasn't like, because the plagues are not listed in an order of like severity either. I mean, some people are apt to try to like do that, to try to be like, it goes from bad to worse, but it is starting to get more severe if you look at it in certain lights. Like boils suck. Remember that one of the Job at his most miserable was covered in boils. Like that's one of the ways the devil made him want to curse God, is he put boils on him from head to toe, and he was in the dirt. And I was going to say something interesting, and it's not even just over the man, it's over the beast too. Like all the cows and the cattle, they all had boils too. And I was going to say that, we're starting to see Moses enact these specific things, personally, instead of going through Aaron. Like probably Moses is growing. I have this idea that as the plagues are going on, Moses is growing in his faith and is being used more, because as you see the last couple plagues, Moses isn't going to be like, Aaron, do this. Aaron rose the staff. Moses himself grabbed the dust full of ashes and threw it up in the air. But then Josh made the comment about him being far away. And I remember Moses, he didn't have to talk, and he didn't say nothing. So he probably couldn't talk good. And he had the ashes like, oh, good. This one doesn't take any words. And he just throws it up in the air and just runs away. So it kind of ruined my point there. But anyway, this is the first time we see in verse 12 that the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh. We're getting to the point where there's this idea that Pharaoh, God gives you chances and God allows you to make chances, but eventually he's going to enact his will as well. And it was obvious that Pharaoh was just going to continue to be a thorn. And at this point, God takes over completely and just makes a point. And he says, before the seventh plague comes about, the Lord comes to Moses and kind of tells him to go stand before Pharaoh and tell him. And he gives him kind of like what I describe as like a warning to Pharaoh that the last three plagues would be more severe. Nathan, I actually want you to read chapter 9, verses 13 through 17, because there's a separation between the first 6 and the 7 through 10.
Then the Lord said to Moses, "Rise early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh and say to him, 'Thus says the Lord God of the Hebrews, let my people go, that they may serve me. For at this time I will send all my plagues to your very heart, and on your servants, and on your people, that you may know that there is none like me in all the earth.'
Woo!
Now if I had stretched out my hand and struck you and your people with pestilence, then you would have not been cut off from the earth. But indeed, for this purpose I have raised you up, that I may show my power in you, and that my name may be declared in all the earth. As yet you exalt yourself against my people, and that you will not let them go. Behold, tomorrow about this time I will cause very heavy hail to rain down, such as has not been in Egypt since its founding until now. Therefore, send now and gather your livestock and all that you have in the field, for the hail shall come down on every man and every animal which is found in the field and is not brought home, and they shall die.
Man, that's just heavy, dude. God comes and straight up calls Pharaoh out and says, I'm the one that puts you where you think you're powerful. You think that you were given divine right to rule only as far as I have given you. And this is why you were born, so that I can show my power and deliver my people out of your grasp. That blew my mind when I read it. And the more I studied it, I was just like, geez, what a powerful moment.
He raised them up so he can take them down.
It's just, and we think people get to a point when they achieve such levels of power and prestige, and you see it throughout history. Like, it's that Icarus effect where you fly too close to the sun thinking that nothing can touch you. But we have to realize that there's none like, not only in the land of Egypt, but over the whole earth. God is alone the one that lifts up and breaks down.
To tie in with that, I want to read a little bit, like a little verse from the papyrus that I was talking about from this
Josh, I'm convinced that Josh has the open papyrus in front of him. Like he went to the museum.
No, I mean, like, I have the translated version. I have to translate because we're reading, what's going on in the Bible. But
I just thought
this is a supposed eyewitness of what's going on. He's basically saying like
papyrus.
I'm sorry. Keep going. Go, Josh. I want to hear it.
I do.
I'm just messing with you.
Indeed, the hot-tempered man says, if I knew where God is, then I would serve him. And he's kind of speaking like a bunch of these angry people, he's talking about the Egyptians, a bunch of these guys, they're just kind of like, if I knew that there was a God, I would serve him. And it's wild to think that because they serve their God so intensely, but because of all their struggles of what they're going through, they're already kind of like, I'd rather just worship this God and have it all be over, have it all be done. Because later on, he's saying that I'm not going to really read, but he's saying like a lot of the people is kind of like, I wish that I would be dead. And even the children are looking at their parents. And in the poem, it says that the children are looking at their parents and saying, I wish that you never caused me to be born.
Yeah, that's heavy. And it definitely really showed the level of suffering that was brought upon Egypt. But an interesting thing that happens here, at this point, there were some amongst the Egyptians that it says feared the word of the Lord. And this plague specifically, some of them listened and brought their servants and their livestock to flee to the house, but some left their livestock and servants out in the field, not listening to what God said. And God tells Moses to stretch out his hand, and it says that hail fell down and killed everything, even the herbs and even the whatever that was growing. It was thunder, hail, and fire darted down and made it rain over the land of Egypt. Hail and fire mingled with hail. I thought hail is like balls of ice, aren't they?
Yeah. So
imagine balls of ice surrounded by fire falling down with thunder and clouds and rain and destroys. I don't know. It took a second here and actually described that it was every single bud of let me pull it up here. Now the flax and the barley that were struck, for the barley was in the head of the flax, was a bud, and the wheat was spent. There was a late crop, and that crop was destroyed. Did a bad job of explaining it. But everything except for in the land of Goshen, where the Israelites were, there was no hail. And Pharaoh cries out and says, entreat the Lord that there may be no more hail. And in this plague specifically, we see that God is conquering the god Nut, the goddess of the sky. And this is where we start to see the greater gods of Egypt kind of being conquered and subdued by the power of God. Nut was the greater god that gave birth to more gods with her brother Geb. I think I said that Happy gave birth. It was actually earlier. I'm not an Egyptologist or anything like that, or Egyptian scholar, but this god would have
more hail.
I didn't mention the boils of God that was covered. Back in the boils, it was Sekhmet, which we've heard before. Was the goddess over disease. Isis, which was a goddess over power of medicine and peace, and Sunu, Those were the gods that were conquered by the boils plague. And now we have Nut, the goddess of the sky. And it was when the sky goddess and the earth god gave birth to other gods like Osiris, Isis, Set, these ones that were like more like you've probably heard these words before. Those gave birth to those gods, and Pharaoh would have been a descendant of one of these gods like Osiris or Isis or Set. Like they're usually, oh, I'm the son of Ra or I'm the son of Isis, and that's what gave them the divine right to rule. And God is destroying the sky goddess while raining down hailfire upon all of the land, destroying the crops, destroying the people, destroying the animals. It's just insane.
Okay, now we're going to the 8th.
Pharaoh again agrees to let him go, and then obviously he reneges on that again.
Each time it's crazy that he keeps doing this. Each time it's just kind of like, he falls into. He's like, oh, I'm gonna let you go, and then like he's like, yeah, I could take another one.
This next plague is weird because I hate these insects.
This was a lot of people. This next plague, the plague 8, is the one that's just like when you think of plagues, this is commonly associated.
This is the one that would terrify. Isn't this one coming back in Revelation?
That's like a worse version of this is coming with one of the bowls that were like poured out by the angels.
Yeah. So the 8th plague is locusts.
Start reading from chapter 10, verse 1.
Now the Lord said to Moses, go unto Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his servants, that I may show these signs of mine before him, and that you may tell in the hearing of your son and your son's son the mighty things I have done in Egypt, and my signs which I have done among them, that you may know that I am the Lord. So Moses and Aaron came into Pharaoh and said to him, thus says the Lord God of the Hebrews, how long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, that they may serve me. Or else, if you refuse to let my people go, behold, tomorrow I will bring locusts into your territory, and they shall cover the face of the earth, so that no one will be able to see the earth. And they shall eat the residue of what is left, which remains to you from the hail. And they shall eat every tree which grows up for you out of the field. They shall fill your houses, the houses of all your servants, and the houses of all the Egyptians, which neither your fathers nor your fathers' fathers have seen since the day that they were on the earth to this day. And he turned and went out from Pharaoh.
This, if you've ever seen National Geographic or have watched Planet Earth, you can Google locust plague, like swarms of locusts when they go from being grasshoppers to locusts. I wish I would have looked this up, but there's something that happens chemically in the brains. Isn't like a locust just a grasshopper that goes insane? Like their brain literally goes nuts.
I don't think so.
No, there is. I'm telling you, there's something about this. I can't believe I didn't look this up.
A pig becomes a hog.
I know that. But like go and you can Google this and see how destructive swarms of locusts are, and why would something like this not be closer to whenever there was like the pestilence and the flies and the gnats or whatever. Locusts are completely, they destroy everything. Every bit of green, they literally leave dust as if there was like a famine for 3 years. And they said there was so many that it covered up the ground. You couldn't even see the ground. That is scary. Locusts are huge and they just are completely ravenous. There's nothing, like, insatiable. They will eat every little bit of everything. And it's just, this one freaks me out when I think about it. Are you looking up the locust thing?
No.
Oh.
But there was this whole, like 2 years ago or something like that? There was this whole like locust type of scare, like that locusts were going to come and up from the south, I guess, and going to be swarming into America and completely destroying crops and stuff like that. And it didn't help that Jurassic Park, the new Jurassic Park movie, the most recent one, I guess, that came out, they had a whole locust thing that was kind of made by, like, in a lab made by a group of people, and it was like a dinosaur type of locust that was going through and killing all the farms of people they didn't want to have. And
so, just real quick, I did look this up. Locusts are grasshoppers that change morphologically. What happens is when they're crowded together and there's a bunch of them, they gain what's known as, like, even like humans, you know how there's a mob mentality and people can become crazy. You can look this up. I mean, when people are together, they're more likely to do crazy things than they are by themselves. Now, the same things happen. They literally chemically, their serotonin levels increase to such an extent that they physically change and they grow and they become like they're more, they grow as a swarm and they go crazy. It's grasshoppers that literally go insane and go into like a mob psycho serotonin level or serotonin.
So if I see a group of a couple of grasshoppers getting together in my yard, what should I do? Should I just destroy them before they gather and mob up against me?
That's how locusts are. The word locust comes from a grasshopper that goes crazy because they're crowded together and their chemical balance in their brain changes the way they think.
But apparently locusts are pretty good in protein and fiber and you can eat them.
Grasshoppers are. Locusts are scary.
You can eat locusts as well.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't John the Baptist eat locusts?
He eats grasshoppers, but yeah, locust is again the term for when they're swarmed together, but it's the same thing. Locusts and grasshoppers. That's what I'm saying. They're just they go crazy.
No, a butterfly is not the same thing as a caterpillar. Caterpillar.
As you mean as a moth? Or are you talking about? Yeah, I guess I'm just.
What is a moth and a butterfly?
He was just saying the caterpillar is different than a butterfly. It's just before the metamorphosis.
What about a moth?
I don't know. Just
moths.
Just listen.
What becomes a moth?
It's the same thing.
Okay, it's a moth.
If a man goes crazy and kills a bunch of people, is he still like a human?
Maybe a moth is a centipede.
No, what? Josh, stop it. What are you talking about? The gods that were destroyed in this plague by the one true God, the great I am, was Nut, once again, the god of the sky, and Osiris, the god of crops and fertility. And Pharaoh's officers are actually tired of it by this point, and even Pharaoh's officers are coming to Pharaoh and they're just like, can you just, everything sucks. Can you let him go? And yeah.
Pharaoh just, once again, no.
Pharaoh calls him in haste and says, please relieve us. And he wants to let them go. He offers to let him go, but then say, hey, leave your cattle behind. Just leave. The cattle is here and you can go. But Moses is like, how am I supposed to know? Who am I supposed to... I don't know what God is going to require from us. We need to take the cattle so that we can sacrifice. And yeah,
at this point, it's like this isn't really a bad deal.
That's what the ninth plague. I said that early. The Pharaoh's officers come to him and ask him to let him go, and he tries to say, "We'll go with your young and your old and your daughters."
All right, we'll get into that with the ninth, but with the eighth. We have Pharaoh goes to Moses and Aaron and says, I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. Now, therefore, please forgive my sin only this once and entreat the Lord your God that he may take away from me this death only. So he's like, just like only this one thing, just this one time and this one sin, just ask your God to like take it away. And so he went, Moses did it. So he went out from Pharaoh and entreated the Lord, and the Lord turned a very strong west wind, which took away the locusts and blew them into the Red Sea.
Yep.
And not one locust remained in the territory of Egypt. But once again, Pharaoh is an idiot. Like, time after time, these things keep happening. And Pharaoh's like, oh, please, just, help me out. And they help him out and they get rid of the problem. And then again, the guy's like, forget you guys.
Fool me once. Shame on you. Fool me 9 times. There's like a joke about that somewhere. I know there's like a comedic bit on it. Anyway, the 9th plague. Nathan, chapter 10, verse 21.
The 9th plague, it's not a plague, it's just straight murking at this point.
I mean, the 9th plague is darkness.
And the Lord's, well, what?
Chapter 10, verse 21.
Oh, okay.
Did you go? You skipped it.
I passed it, yeah.
Yeah.
The Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand toward the heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, darkness which may even be felt. So Moses stretched out his hand toward heaven, and there was thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They did not see one another, nor did anyone rise from his place for 3 days. But all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings.
Yeah, again, the Israelites are just like witnessing, but like chilling. And then Pharaoh says, go serve. This is where he says, go serve, but let your flock stay behind. And Moses is like, we're going to sacrifice. We're going to need sacrifices, but even we don't know yet what God is going to require as a sacrifice. So we're going to take everything. Not one hoof shall be left behind, Pharaoh, which I thought was kind of a funny little thing. But interesting to also note that at this point, Moses is the one using the rod. Moses is stretching out his hand. I don't see Aaron anywhere. Moses is fully stepping into his role as the prophet and the one called. And I don't see him having any issues talking to Pharaoh at this point. Obviously, the God that was, not obviously, but the God that was conquered in this plague specifically was the well-known Egyptian god Ra, the god of the sun, order, kingship, and power. A man, he was depicted as a man with the head of a hawk, a gold disc with a serpent above his head, and by blocking out the sun and darkening the sky, God is showing that I am the one that's even control over this, and I can make it light here, I can make it dark there. You can't control it. Imagine 3 days of just darkness. Tell me that's not like, wasn't there this one, that one story with Christopher Columbus when he came to America, and because he had control over the maps and the astrological signs, and he had like, it was already, he had like a book that projected what's going to happen. He used that one time to like enslave and to control the indigenous population. He's like, they were pretty much bringing him a bunch of stuff for free. And one day they decided to stop. And he's like, if you don't do that, I being a god, am going to block out the sun tomorrow at this time, because he had it like written down already, which the scientists have already shown. And exactly at that time, the next day, the sun went black, and all the Indians around him like started freaking out, and they're like, "Oh my God, he really is God!" And then he's like, "Promise that you'll do what I say." And they're like, "Okay, we promise." It's like, "All right, in about 7 minutes, it's gonna go. It's gonna be good again."
That's a road to El Dorado or something?
No, this is actually like, look it up. Columbus like performs this quote unquote sign by having correctly predicted a solar eclipse. And the indigenous population believed him to be a deity. And so he had never had any issue with that particular group of people.
That's crazy.
Pretty much doing whatever he says. Now imagine that, and then Moses standing in Egypt. It's going to be black for 3 days, and then the sun itself is blotted out.
Also, there's somebody else that famously blocked out the sun, was Monty Burns in the episode of The Simpsons where Maggie shoots him. It was a 2-parter.
I have no idea.
He blocks out the sun, and somebody shoots him at the end of the episode.
There's so many Simpsons episodes.
It was a season finale, and then like everybody was wondering who shot Monty Burns, and then like, you find out next season it was Maggie.
Mm.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's like an iconic moment in Simpsons. Anyway. Right.
So the way that this encounter with Pharaoh ended, this is the last time that they're going to be face to face like this. It says that he gave him partial leave to go after Moses clapped back and said, I'm taking all my livestock with me. And then whenever it became light again, the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and then he would not let them go. And he actually goes to the point where he says, get away from me. And if I see you again, that's going to be, you'll die. Like, I don't want to see you again, Moses. If I see you again, that's it. You're going to die. And Moses is just straight up like, you have spoken well. I will never see your face again. Perfect. I don't want to see you either. And they both leave. And chapter 11 is literally, I'm not going to make Nathan read it, but it announces the 10th and final plague. And there's a couple things that happen before the 10th plague comes to be. God announces that he's going to bring one more plague on Pharaoh. And afterwards, he will finally let the Israelites go free. And he will surely gather you together and speak now. And
what are you talking about?
I'm sorry, I lost my thing there.
Like, why'd you just stop talking?
And he tells them that before they go. No, you're good. And he tells them that before they go out, that they're going to ask their Egyptian neighbors for like silver, gold, articles of clothing. Like they're going to plunder, and God's going to give them favor in the sight of the Egyptians as well. And he says that about midnight, I will go out in the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land shall die. And God is going to enact the last and most deadly of all the plagues. And it says that there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as was not like it before, nor shall it ever be again. And it's just, even the animals, the dogs, even in Egypt or in Israel, God will set them apart, and he will not allow this thing to happen. But I want to bring out something. God institutes in chapter 12, the Passover. The Passover is one of the most significant, I want to say ritual, but significant celebrations and crossovers is one of the most significant things that is traditionally
Jewish
held.
holidays.
Jewish holiday. Good Lord. I'm sorry. I couldn't think of the word. That is repeated to this day. And it's something that follows and is so significant to the biblical narrative and the story. This is where it begins. And God tells Moses that on this month, on the 10th day, the first month, you will grab, every man shall take for himself a lamb according to his house of his father. And if the household is too small for a lamb, then he shall take his neighbor next to his house according to the number of his persons, whatever. But you shall keep it until the 14th day, and the lamb shall have no blemish, no mark. It should be a male of the first year from the sheep or from the goats. And on the 14th day, they shall kill it at twilight, shall take its blood and put it on the doorposts of the doors where they stay. And then they shall eat it. They shall eat it, all the flesh that night. Not a bit will remain, not the entrails, not the skin, not the flesh. All of it should be eaten, and it should not be boiled. It should not be roasted, or it shouldn't be boiled or cooked in any other way other than roasted with fire. And they'll eat it with unleavened bread with bitter herbs being like, to kind of represent the bitter time that they spent in Egypt, like, wild lettuce and the other weird, it's nothing savory or delicious. Not boiled with water, but roasted with fire, its head, its legs, its entrails, and none of it should remain. Anything that remains left over, you're to burn it with fire. And it's interesting that they have to, with a belt around their waist, their sandals on their feet, a staff in their hand, they shall eat it. They have to do something very specific. And then when God sends the angel of death, or when he sends death to the firstborns, this is the first time we see in any of the plagues that Israel itself has to do something in order to not be affected. Up until now, God had separated them personally just because they were in the land of Goshen and they were God's chosen people. But God, with this final judgment upon all of Egypt, I think it's extremely interesting.
No. Read verse 12 of chapter 12.
For I will pass through the land of Egypt on that night, and will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord.
What about it?
Well, I just said it earlier. Like, this was something against the gods of Egypt. God was proving something towards them.
We were saying
what
that.
What do you mean you've been saying that? You guys made fun of me for bringing up.
Every single plague we brought up how God was conquering a specific god.
Yes.
I literally called it the battle of the gods when this episode started. I agree with you.
Okay. Well, earlier it sounded like you guys didn't, because when I brought it up, it's like, it had to have been against Egypt because Egypt died.
So this day will be kept as a memorial. And I want to, when the beginning of the next episode, I'm going to go more into the Passover, but for time's sake, we're going to kind of continue past it. But just notice how when it comes to the judgment to death, not even the Israelites are exempt. They didn't do anything to exempt them from the price and the penalty of sin and humanity. They needed to be covered by the blood of the Lamb. And this is going to be extremely important later on when we see Jesus being the spotless Lamb.
Like Christianity.
It's kind of the whole point there. This is the first time we see God bringing in that little foreshadowing that the blood with the hyssop on the doorpost, when the angel or when the Lord sees that blood is on the doorpost, he will not enter there and there will not be death. But death does come in the final plague. And it says that not one house in Egypt was unaffected with a death. The oldest from every single house died that night. And in the night, when Pharaoh saw that, he says finally he relents and allows Moses to take the Israelites and to leave.
The end.
The God that was conquered in this final plague would have been all the gods. Any god that could protect from life, fertility. Specifically, some say it was Isis and Pharaoh himself. Pharaoh, being the representative of God to his people, should have been able to protect his people. Pharaoh himself was conquered in the final plague. Egypt was officially subdued, and God showed with his miraculous hand and his works and his powerful presence that he alone, and there is none like him in Egypt. Now,
So Andrew, I'm going to ask you a question that usually signifies the ending of the episode.
This has been a long one.
Because we have to end this episode.
We do one day have to end this episode.
All right. What is this greater meaning of this podcast to you?
The greater meaning to me when I look at the story of the plagues is a couple parts. I look at Moses, a man that accepted the call of God, but you saw the way he increased in faith as he went in through the works. And I believe oftentimes when we're called to do something greater that we don't believe we're worth doing or worthy of doing, it just takes that step of obedience. Even if you don't fully believe while you're doing it in the beginning that you're supposed to be doing it, or you're able to be doing it, or you're qualified to be doing it, those steps that you take in God and seeing how God works the way he said he would increases your faith, and eventually you can grow in your faith. That's why God says you take it from faith to faith, right? Your faith is supposed to be something that is constantly evolving, constantly growing, constantly getting stronger and closer to God. But it takes action on your part to take your steps and to move forward into a plan that God has. But at the end of the day, without God, we are nothing. The Israelites were not special because they were just born that way. They were special because God put his name on them and God called them. And because God decided to save them, they were special. But not even they, God's elect people, were exempt from the penalty of sin, which was death. And God showed them through that sign of the Passover that even if I put all the plagues on Egypt, you are guilty of sin as well. And only by the blood of the Lamb will you be spared. And I thought that was extremely powerful. That's my greater meaning.
Joshua?
My greater meaning is on basically on the war of the gods, I guess. God versus gods, or however you want to title it.
It's like gods versus quote gods.
Yeah. We all have, if you're a Christian or a non-Christian, a believer or non-believer, at the end of the day, we all have gods in our lives. It might not be the same type of gods that you see over here with the Egyptians, but we all worship something more than God himself. And with that, we have to remember, and not only do we have to remember, God will put things in our lives to remind us that your phone can't save you from certain catastrophes. Your gun, if you carry your gun can't save you from every type of issue. There's certain things, even doctors can't heal you from certain things. Whatever you put your faith in, whatever you put your trust in, at the end of the day, the only answer to every problem is God. God will conquer any of these other things. And not only, he shows it in this story, and he shows the conquering of everything, that he's in control of it all. And same thing in our lives, all these gods that we put before our God, the God of all gods. At the end of the day, God will conquer if you let him, or even if you don't let him. He is the God of all gods. So that's my greater meaning.
Nice.
All right. So my greater meaning, I'm going to take it in a different direction than both of you. In this in this passage that we just read, we read about how multiple times God was showing who he was to a certain individual, and that individual, time after time, kept hardening their heart and staying stubborn in their ways. Pharaoh is a Pharaoh in this story is an example we could take on how not to be, right? Because honestly, and I could speak for myself, I have been for so many years so stubborn in the face of like when God is trying to speak to me. God has told me
Pharaoh.
many times, God, has spoken to me that I need to pray more, that I need to read the Bible more, that I need to be a better, more loving person, that I need to forgive, not have so much hate. I'm so stubborn and why are we stubborn? Because I have this like image of the person that I want to be and the things that I want to accomplish. And it makes my heart, and I just force myself to kind of like, it's not that I'm stubborn thinking that I'm never going to change. I'm always like, I'm going to change one day, but I have to have this first and then I'll change. It's not the way to be. And God was using Pharaoh as an example, and God said, I'm going to harden his heart because he was trying to establish his glory, right? But how oftentimes did God want to establish his glory in your life, but your heart was too hardened and your ears were turned deaf to what he's trying to do because you think that you know better than the ways of the Lord. You think that you know the way God should work, and you don't let God do it the way he wants to do his work in your life. And I urge you, every single one of you listeners, don't harden your heart and let your heart open and receive what God wants to do in your life the way God wants to do it in your life. You don't get to dictate the way God works. And that's my greater meaning.
Wow. And there you have it. We covered a lot.
Wow.
I think Andrew's like battery is depleted.
It usually is.
He needs to plug in.
For y'all that don't know, we record these like late at night and oftentimes into the wee hours of the morning. Usually after a day spent doing other things because, this is when we can. We all got busy lives, and we're committed to taking you guys on this journey with us. And this is our passion. We love the stories of the Bible. And this is what, I believe God called us to do, to share this with you guys. So if you like what you heard and you want to support us, we're going to keep doing this for you guys. We're going to keep moving it through, and we're going to get through the entire Bible. So if you want to support us and continue to help us grow as we have grown up until now, share with your friends, give us that 5-star review. Follow us on all of our platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, Spotify. We're on every single platform, Spotify, Apple, just support us any way you can, and email us your greater meaning, what you thought was interesting or something that you found that we might have missed, because of course we missed, and I was probably completely wrong with the Pharaoh that I mentioned. As I was reading it, I was pretty sure that I was saying the wrong Pharaoh, but I don't have the time or the energy to go through the notes enough to get the right one. So email us at greatermeaningpodcast@gmail.com. That's greatermeaningpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you, and we can't wait for you to join us next time as we follow the actual exodus out of Egypt.
The Exodus part of the Exodus.
The actual Exodus part of Exodus.
After we talk about Passover for an hour.
Or red Kool-Aid.
What? Some people think it was like algae. There was a whole, I didn't even get into that.
The whole algae.
I'm surprised you didn't get into that. I was
supposed to at the end, but we're past 2 hours at this point.
It's crazy that we didn't get into all the merch that's on the way. Yeah, we got that merch coming.
All right, boys and girls, thank you so much for listening. We'll probably touch a little bit based on the whole algae thing next time, because I can't help but not. And the whole the world's examples or the world's answers as to what the plagues could have been other than God. Some people think, spoiler alert, it was a volcanic eruption that would have coincidentally led to at least the first 5 to 6, but nobody really had an answer. Actually, they did have an answer for the death one. We'll get into it.
I love you
all.
Either
way, like I said before, both
except
you
for
two
you
as well. to read the Ippur Papyrus, and you will have kind of a little bit of an understanding of what was going on in the Egyptians' minds.
Josh, we're done.
Josh, Papyrus is by far the worst font
care.
Anyway.
Papyrus font. Did you ever see that Ryan Gosling?
Papyrus font is the worst.
I love that.
I don't care. Okay.
All right, we end it.
We're done.
Please.
Love you guys.